Good morning, everybody. My name is Katie Carter. I'm the emergency response meteorologist with the National Weather Service. And we have a lot to talk about for the week ahead, coming out of a rather active weekend and even more potential for severe weather and flooding. That's really the main concern of this week is that continued threat, with tomorrow being the day of greatest concern. We're also, of course, keeping an eye on the tropics, and we'll have more updates on that. So, our weather pattern over the next few days really keeps things unsettled. We have severe weather threats through at least the middle of the week, today included, though tomorrow is again our focal point. But Wednesday also has the threat for not only severe weather, but even some heavy rainfall. And that threat does not diminish Thursday and Friday. We do still have that unsettled pattern with showers and thunderstorms, but at this point, it's not looking like the severe weather threat, at least for the later part of the week, is too great at this point. But that certainly could change. So, starting off here with a 3 day outlook. Again, today's severe weather, focusing on that part, that element of the storm threat here. It is generally a level one for areas mostly south of I 64. Again, that's just kind of a rough area geographically that we are targeting for that threat. And then there is a tiny little sliver from Danville to the North Carolina line that is in that slight risk or that level two potential for severe storms. So most of the activity this afternoon will be south of I 64, and a few of them could turn severe. But when you look at tomorrow, you really see that it is not only a greater threat with the enhanced risk for severe storms. That's a level three. We don't get that too much. I would say a few times every year we will get that, so it's not too uncommon, but it's also not you know something that we see every day. So we really should be on guard tomorrow, especially in Northwest Virginia. But even the slight risk extends through the rest of the state. So we all should be weather aware for the potential for not only a lot more activity in terms of scattered showers and thunderstorms, but that they could become severe. Wednesday, the severe threat shifts to the south and southeast. So you will see the slight risk is from kind of bisects the city of Richmond down through the Petersburg Tri Cities area, still through the 85-95 corridor and areas east. And that does include most of the eastern shore as well. So, getting into the more specifics for today's severe weather potential in terms of timing, we're looking at about noon to 8 p.m. for these isolated to scattered thunderstorms. Again, most of them going to remain in that green area with not much activity north of I 64. Now, we're pretty confident that we are going to be seeing storms in this time frame from noon to 8 p.m, and that the coverage, we are feeling pretty confident that it's going to be isolated to scattered. But in terms of the intensity, it's more of a moderate confidence. We think that there will be some stronger storms, but may not quite reach that severe criteria. Today's storm threats really limited to just damaging winds. Hail and tornadoes are not going to be threats, so we could be seeing some additional wind damage. And then focusing on tomorrow, shifting things here, the time frame is similar, but it's maybe a little bit later on. We're looking at 2 p.m. to about 10 p.m. for tomorrow's storms. And this is more of a widespread statewide event. We'll be seeing scattered showers and thunderstorms through that period, several rounds, and the strongest expected to be in Northwest Virginia. We have pretty high confidence in not only the timing, the coverage, but also in the intensity, because tomorrow's dynamics just look to be a little bit better for, or more conducive to severe storms. Now, tomorrow's threats, I went backwards on accident, sorry. So going ahead to tomorrow's threats, it's not just limited to damaging winds. So we could also be seeing isolated tornadoes. That's still the kind of lower threat on the scale here, but areas shaded in tan in Northern Virginia have a 5 to 9% chance of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of any point in that area. By far, damaging winds still going to be the main threat, but it's not the only threat. So areas in pink, that bright magenta color, that's a 45 to 55 probability of severe wind. Now, severe wind, the National Weather Service classifies as anything over 60 miles per hour. That's when the threshold that we start to see significantly more damage. So that is a really high probability in that area. And even for those shaded in red that bisects more than half of the state, through almost a straight line through the state there, that's still a 30 to 44% chance of severe wind for everyone else shaded in red, and then 15 to 29% chance for those in Southern Virginia. Hail also going to be possible with localized locations seeing 1 inch or maybe a little bit bigger than that hail in some of the strongest storms that we see tomorrow. Now, setting aside the severe weather threat, of course, with thunderstorms comes the potential for heavy rainfall. Today is kind of lower on that threat scale. We have marginal risk for a good part of the state with a slight risk down in the Danville area again. But tomorrow, on top of all of the severe weather threats, we could also be seeing instances of flash flooding. So there are going to be really strong winds, possibly with hail, isolated tornadoes, and also the threat for scattered flash flooding. So tomorrow definitely needs to be watched with the latest development of the forecast. The shift continues on Wednesday to the southeast, as I mentioned, with the severe weather and the flooding. So we'll also see that potential for the Richmond down to the I-85-95 corridor and areas east. In terms of rainfall amounts, we are still in a drought. We desperately do need this rain. We are talking about, even recent rains. I've had some questions about, well, gosh, isn't this rain helping the drought? Well, you have to remember that when we're talking about drought, it's not just the amount of rainfall that we can get to make up for the drought. It certainly helps. But when we're talking about a sustained drought for as long as we have been seeing one here in Virginia, the lack of rainfall over time really, really impacts the groundwater. You'll probably notice our reservoir levels are really low. Private wells, some of them are completely dry. We're hearing stories of folks having to truck water in for their private wells because they are just dry. So, because of those greater effects, the cascading impacts of lack of rainfall, it's really going to take a lot more rain over a longer period of time for us to catch up. So, this is going to be good news for us, especially for Southern and Southeast Virginia, seeing the highest amounts over the next few days. But that's just kind of giving you a little bit of perspective as to you folks asking, hey, we've seen some recent rain lately. Why are we still talking about drought? Well, that is exactly why. Kind of a lesser threat, the heat. It is still going to be pretty hot through the middle of the week. So highs only in the 80s to low 90s, but it's just going to be so humid that it's still going to be feeling like 100 degrees tomorrow and Wednesday. Beyond that, we actually do cool off, cool being a relative term for this time of the year, but you will notice that highs Thursday through Saturday are actually in the upper 70s to low 80s. So that's going to be a welcome change for us there. Overnight lows also a little bit more comfortable too. We might see a few upper 50s Thursday and Friday for our lows. So that is going to be pretty nice. Probability of precipitation through the middle of the week is pretty high and tapers off towards Friday and into the weekend, but still need to keep an eye on storm chances later this week. And then the last thing that I will leave you with is this tropical update. So, beyond this, we are not looking at anything in the longer term that we need to keep an eye on, at least at the moment. But Tropical Depression 2 is currently in the Gulf. It is expected to intensify today and become a tropical storm at some point. It will be named Bertha as long as it is named. And then it's expected to go west. So, you'll see a lot of our neighbors in the Gulf going to be seeing a lot of flooding rains and definitely some tropical storm force winds in the area. But this system poses no threat to the Commonwealth. So we are definitely happy with that, but keeping an eye on our friends in the Gulf. Other than that, just really, really need to hone in on the fact that tomorrow could be a little bit rough. We will, because of that threat, be sending a full weather briefing tomorrow as well. And possibly also doing another live briefing, although that will be decided later today. So if we do another live briefing, you'll get an email and you can join if you're able or at your convenience. But thanks everyone. Again, pending any questions, that is the briefing for today. We'll put the recording up and send it on out. Have a great week.